Hi guys, so today's video is going to be my July wrap-up. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the books that you voted for. I every month have been doing a what should I read next video, and you guys get to vote on one young adult book and one adult book for me to read, and the adult book that you picked for this last month was Nevernight by J. Kristoff. This is a book that is kind of hit or miss for a lot of people. I can completely understand why. It's just kind of funny to me that I very rarely see people that are in the middle, but it's because it's definitely very distinct. It has a very, what I think is an eccentric writing style. I also think the book is somewhat satirical in that it has dark content and dark themes and tones, but rather than being really, really serious, I think it does the opposite. It doesn't take itself that seriously, and it almost pokes fun. And by doing that, it goes over the top sometimes with its descriptions and its execution in the narration. So if you're looking for something extremely unique in how it is written, I think Nevernight is going to be appealing to you. Despite having an interesting approach in how the story is told, it has a very simple premise. It's a character who had tragedy strike when she was young. This tragedy was caused by a group of individuals that she now wants revenge against, and so she attends an assassin school that she's hoping will give her the skills that she needs to get this revenge. And it's also very mature. Even though I'm saying that I think it doesn't take itself that seriously, that doesn't mean it doesn't have mature content. It's got about as mature content as you can have. The sexual content is very explicit. The violence is pretty violent. So it's definitely not a book that I think, like 14-year-olds can pick up and have a good old time. It's not really like that, even though at times it is on the sillier side. As far as my personal enjoyment of the story, I do think that I'm going to have to pick up the next one before I can really decide. I didn't dislike it, but I also didn't love it. I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, well, that was really weird. So that's kind of how I feel right now. I'm a very character-driven reader. I love feeling like I'm experiencing things with the characters, and the format of the story doesn't make me feel like I'm experiencing with them. It feels rather like I am watching them and am being told about them, which that is kind of how the story is. There's this narrator that occasionally, talks to you, the reader, that isn't the person that is the main character in the story. So it's definitely unique. It's definitely really interesting. I gotta, I think, read the next one before I can decide if this is gonna be something I really, really enjoy. The other one that you guys picked for me, the YA one, would be Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, but I haven't finished it yet. It is a reread for me, so I haven't gotten that far into it. I will get to it, and I'll have the review up very soon, but I don't want to really give my thoughts quite yet because I want to make sure I finish it all. But I just wanted to let you guys know that that was the one that won, and I am reading it, just not done yet. I did finally get around to the other YA/middle grade pick from the previous month, which is Percy Jackson. And this is a story by Rick Riordan that most of you are very familiar with. It's a boy that finds out that he's half Greek god, and so he has some powers and he has to go on a bit of an adventure to save the day. And it wasn't bad, of course. I'm not saying it was bad, but I just think perhaps this book was maybe more on the younger side than what I care for. It definitely feels like it is written for a younger audience. It's middle grade, so duh. But some middle grade is leaning more toward the older side of middle grade, and then some middle grade very much is leaning toward the younger side. And I was talking to my friend Jade from Bedtime Bookworm about this, and I'm not saying it's as geared toward young people as Barney is, but you know how there's some kids shows and movies that even as adults you can really, really love? And then, like Mulan. I love Mulan. If I watched it right now, I'd still get super pumped and emotional watching that movie. But if I watch Barney, I'm not going to have very many emotions watching Barney. I'm like, oh, that's nice for kids. So that's kind of how I felt about Percy Jackson. I have a full review up for it and a little bit of a chat and stuff if you guys want more of my thoughts for it. Next up, we have a book that I started before July, but I didn't get around to putting up my review for it until July, so I thought I'd mention it here, and that would be The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. This is the first book in the First Law trilogy. The First Law trilogy often is praised and considered to be the best grimdark out there. It epitomizes grimdark. And also, if you guys are unfamiliar with Grimdark or what it is, I'll start off by saying I think, one, that it's still evolving and people have different definitions of it. But I did a video about Grimdark, so hopefully if you're looking for more information, I can link that below and maybe you'll find it helpful. But anyway, I had an interesting reading experience in this book because for the longest time, I wasn't into it. I am a character-driven reader, and this book is basically all about the characters in the first entry, but I didn't like them for a long time, or I didn't care about them or their situations. I felt like I was just following them around aimlessly, and then something clicked partway through the story, and then all of a sudden, I loved them. So I think the thing with this story is that if you are a plot-driven reader, there in the first book is not much being driven forward based off of a set plot. You don't have characters that are all coming together to try and attain some greater good, try to take out some evil force or person or anything like that. It's just, here's these characters, some of them kind of suck, and just watch them. Switching gears a little bit, as far as switching gears from the Blade itself, not really switching gears for me because I always end up liking books by this author, and that would be Therithmatist by Brandon Sanderson. And oh my gosh, I loved this book so much. I want to start off by saying this is a Sanderson book that is not a part of his Cosmere, and it's not adult fantasy. So it is geared towards a younger audience, and for some people, I saw somebody once talking about Skyward, which I feel like is supposed to be like 12, 13, 14-year-old age range, and they were like, I don't get the hype around Sanderson. This is very childish. It's like, you picked up a book literally for kids. Of course it is. Anyway, this book is it's for kids. It's for a younger audience, but it still pulled so many emotions out of me. It had so many themes I really liked. I really liked the main characters. The story was really fascinating. There's so many things to say about this book. I did a whole review for it. I'll link any review I've done for any of the books mentioned down below, but I just feel like I won't be able to concisely cram in everything I want to say about this story, just that it has a really fascinating magic system, as is common for Sanderson. People have the ability to draw these circles and lines and basically like geometric shapes that end up having certain powers of deflection or defense or attack. And they can also draw little artistic creatures that they call chalklings, and they can send these creatures out to attack. And only some people in the population can do this. The population is made up of people from our own world. It's actually a story set in our world, and it's kind of a modified version of our world. It's an altered history where, of course, things changed very much when this magic came to the surface, and our main character is somebody who does not have this magic, but he is so intrigued by it, kind of consumed and obsessed with it. And he's a really sweet main character. He sometimes is a little frustrating, but you can't help but root for him and love him. And the other characters in the story, the side characters, they just are well fleshed out for the amount of screen time that they get. I really liked it. Next up, we have Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This is a standalone novel that is very fun. It's so strangely happy despite a pretty intense amount of stakes. I mean, it's kind of world-ending type situation. If our heroes don't succeed, lots of stuff's gonna go down. But I still just found myself happy reading it. I found myself happy when I finished it. And that's not to say there aren't consequences and that it had a super perfect ending where everything turned out so amazing. I'm not saying that either. Of course, I don't want to give away spoilers, but it just made me feel happy. It made me feel happy. It's a story that follows a main character who has dreams of basically becoming a guard to protect this magical library. As of right now, she's kind of just a little librarian type person in this magical library. And the magical library is made up of things called grimoires, which are these books that sorcerers have kind of tweaked, and there are important bits of information in these stories. And so it's very important that you guard them. And if certain things go wrong with the stories, they can turn into monsters. And our main character is kind of framed or set up or made out to look like it was her fault for the release of some of these grimoires. And so now she's kind of getting caught up in a lot more than she was expecting. She was very sheltered her whole life growing up around this magical library. And it's one of these stories where, even though at the core it is a young adult fantasy story, it has a really great theme of everything isn't always what it seems. What you grew up believing to be right and wrong maybe isn't what is right and wrong. And I really loved that theme, especially in a young adult book, because of the fact that I remember what it was like to be a teenager, and you think you know. You're like, these are my ideals, and I'm gonna stick to them. And then you get older and you meet new people, and you just get exposed to more things, and your view changes a little bit. And I really liked seeing that in our main character. I liked the story in general. I thought it was just so sweet and so fun, even though, like I said, the stakes are really high. Besides those books, I am continuing with my Cosmere and my Witcher reread, and I'm going to be doing some dedicated chats and reviews for those soon. I'm a little behind schedule when it comes to actually uploading the reviews and chats, but I've got my books tabbed up. I will be getting to those reviews and chats very soon. Lastly, I just wanted to let you all know for my Who Should I Draw Next video here on YouTube, Shalon Devar 1, and I've done a video dedicated to showing the time lapse for her and a in-depth but non-spoiler and quick character analysis of her. And on my Patreon, Siri and Vivenna 1 for this last month. So I've gone ahead and done the same kind of video for them. I'll link those down below, but I'll also show the images on the screen here so that you can see what your guys' votes have created. This is something I'm going to be doing every month, so if you don't get the chance to watch the dedicated videos to these characters and the artwork for them, I'll still always show the artwork really quick in my wrap-ups. Anyway, that's it. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye.